She walked right up to me, undressed in silence, and kissed me without asking. The light passed through the dense, mist-covered forests, casting long, wavering shadows across the alien landscape. Captain Ryland moved carefully along a narrow path carved out by earlier explorers. His boots pressed softly against the glowing moss that covered the ground, leaving faint prints that shimmered for a few seconds before fading. Ryland had been on Aurora 7 for 3 months now. He had watched the planet's strange floating plants, the whispering streams that glowed faintly under the mist, and the odd creatures that moved silently in the underbrush. None of the wildlife had ever shown aggression toward humans, but he knew better than to trust appearances. The planet's beauty hid dangers he could not yet understand. Today, his mission was simple: map the northern section of the forest and collect samples of the glowing flora for analysis back at the colony. But as he walked, he felt a strange unease settle over him. Something was not right. The usual sounds of the forest, the hum of insects, the soft rustle of leaves were gone. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then he saw her. She appeared silently, stepping from the mist without a sound. Ryland froze. His heart pounded as he tried to make sense of the figure. At first, he thought it was a human scout from the colony. But no one moved like that. She moved with perfect grace, her steps so quiet that even the moss did not betray her presence. Her skin seemed almost translucent in the morning light, and faint trails of glowing pollen swirled around her as she walked. Ryland took a cautious step forward. "Hello," he called, his voice sounding too loud in the quiet forest. The figure did not answer. She stopped a few feet away, tilting her head slightly, as if studying him. Ryland noticed her eyes were unlike anything he had seen, large, luminous, and filled with a kind of intelligence that made him feel both nervous and curious. He wanted to reach for his communicator to call the colony, but something held him back. It was not fear. It was curiosity. Something about her presence was magnetic. The figure raised a hand slowly. She touched Ryland's wrist lightly, and a soft glow spread across his skin. The sensation was strange, warm, but not uncomfortable. He felt a connection he could not explain, as if the forest itself had handed him a secret. Ryland blinked. "Are you trying to help me?" he asked, even though he did not expect an answer. She stepped closer, still silent, and her glowing eyes met his. Then, with the gentlest of movements, she pointed toward the deeper part of the forest. Ryland hesitated. Should he follow her? Was it safe? But the curiosity inside him won over caution. He nodded slightly, signaling that he would follow. The forest changed as they moved deeper. The light dimmed under the thick canopy, and the glowing plants became brighter, illuminating their path like tiny lanterns. Ryland noticed that every creature they passed seemed to give them space. Even the floating insects moved aside, leaving a clear path. It was as if the forest itself recognized the figure and welcomed her presence. After walking for several minutes, they reached a small clearing. In the center was a shallow pool of water, glowing faintly from some unknown mineral in the soil. Ryland knelt and dipped his hand into the water. The liquid was warm and soft, and when he pulled his hand out, he noticed that the glow from the figure's touch had spread slightly to him. "You are not human," Ryland said, more to himself than to her. The figure nodded slightly, and for the first time, Ryland thought he saw a hint of a smile. It was not a smile as humans knew it, but a gentle curve of expression that seemed to communicate understanding and peace. Ryland tried to think of questions to ask, but words failed him. She was clearly intelligent, but her ways were not like any language he knew. He could not even tell if she had a voice at all. He decided that actions would have to speak instead. He held out his hand slowly in a gesture of friendship. After a moment's pause, she placed her hand over his. The warmth returned, and the faint glow now covered both of their hands. In that moment, Ryland felt a strange sense of calm. It was as if the forest itself had stopped to watch, holding its breath. Then the silence broke. A soft vibration came from the ground beneath them. Rylan looked down and saw faint ripples moving through the moss. The vibrations grew stronger, and he realized they were not natural. They were coming from deeper in the forest. "The relic," he whispered to himself, remembering the old colony reports. Stories told of an ancient alien device buried somewhere in the northern forest, capable of producing energy beyond anything humans had ever seen. Most dismissed it as myth, but the colony leaders had ordered him to investigate. The figure seemed to sense his thoughts. She tightened her grip slightly, then released his hand. With a swift motion, she gestured for him to follow. Without hesitation, Rylan moved after her. He had no idea where she was leading him, but instinct told him he had to trust her. They moved faster now, weaving through twisted roots and glowing plants. The mist thickened, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Rylan's heart raced. He had been through dangerous situations before, but this was different. The presence of the figure made him feel alive in a way that nothing else had. After a while, they reached a small hill covered in dense foliage. The figure stopped and pointed to a small indentation at the base of the hill. Rylan bent down and brushed away the leaves. His fingers touched something hard and metallic. He pulled it free, revealing a small device covered in intricate patterns. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. Rylan's eyes widened. This was it, the relic the colony had been searching for. Before he could examine it further, the ground trembled beneath his feet. The forest around them seemed to shift, trees bending slightly, roots moving as if aware of their presence. Rylan stepped back, holding the relic close. The figure placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. Again, warmth spread from her touch, and Rylan felt courage flood his chest. He understood in that instant that the relic was important not just for humans, but for the balance of the planet itself. He looked at her and nodded. Together, they could protect it. Together, they could survive. As the vibrations intensified, the figure stepped back into the mist, motioning for Rylan to follow quickly. They ran toward a narrow path between two massive trees. The forest seemed to resist them, branches twisting to block the way. But the figure's glow created a path, illuminating the obstacles just enough for Rylan to navigate. Finally, they reached a small clearing where the forest opened up. Rylan paused to catch his breath. The mist was lighter here, and the sun broke through in golden rays. He looked at the figure who now stood silently beside him. "You saved me," he said, though he knew it was more than that. She had guided him, protected him, and led him to something humans could not have found on their own. She tilted her head as if acknowledging his words, and for a moment Rylan felt a bond form between human and alien, explorer and guide, curiosity and understanding. Rylan took a deep breath and looked at the relic in his hands. The journey had just begun. This was only the first step in uncovering the secrets of Aurora 7, and proving that humanity could rise, adapt, and survive in worlds beyond their own. And somewhere in the misty depths of the forest, the figure watched silently, ready to guide him further into the unknown. Rylan held the relic tightly in his hands, feeling its faint pulse beneath his fingers. It was unlike anything he had ever touched. The metal surface was smooth, yet patterned with intricate designs that seemed to shift slightly under the light. He had no idea what it could do, but he knew it was valuable, not just for the colony, but perhaps for all of humanity. Beside him, Lyra stood silently, her glowing eyes scanning the misty forest. She had led him here without a single spoken word, and Rylan had come to trust her guidance instinctively. Though she had no voice he could understand, her gestures, her glances, and even the glow that emanated from her skin seemed to communicate more than words ever could. The forest, however, was not done testing them. As they moved deeper, the vibrations beneath Rylan's boots grew stronger. The glowing moss shifted like waves across the ground, and twisted branches stretched toward them, as though the forest itself were alive and watching. He tightened his grip on the relic and followed Lyra closely. "Whatever this is," he muttered to himself, "it's not going to be easy." Lyra glanced at him and tilted her head slightly. It was a gesture that Rylan had learned to read. It meant, "Keep going, you are capable." He nodded and stepped forward, ignoring the tremors and swaying trees. They reached a narrow canyon, where tall cliffs rose on either side, covered in strange, glowing vines. The path was barely wide enough for a single person, and the air was thick with mist. Rylan looked down at the bottom and saw a stream of shimmering water winding through the rocks. The sound of rushing water filled his ears, louder than the silence that had dominated the forest earlier. Lyra stepped onto the edge of the path, moving as if she were one with the wind. Rylan followed, carefully placing each foot where she had stepped. He realized that her presence made the path safer, as though she could sense danger before it arrived. Suddenly, the cliff walls trembled. Small rocks began to fall, and Rylan barely leapt out of the way in time. He looked at Lyra, but she didn't even flinch. She gestured for him to follow, moving forward with speed and precision. They reached the bottom of the canyon, where the stream widened into a shallow pool. The water glowed faintly, reflecting the light from the bioluminescent plants. Rylan knelt and touched it, feeling a strange energy pass through him. The relic in his hand pulsed in response. It was almost alive, reacting to the forest energy, and perhaps to Lyra as well. He took a deep breath. "We need to understand this," he said softly. "If this relic is really what I think it is, it could help humanity survive or destroy us if it falls into the wrong hands." Lyra's glowing eyes seemed to acknowledge his words. She stepped into the water, letting the soft currents ripple around her feet. The glow from her body spread into the water, illuminating symbols on the surface that had been hidden until now. Rylan leaned closer and saw alien markings that pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. "This is incredible," he whispered. He had spent years studying alien artifacts in simulations and reports, but nothing had prepared him for this. This relic was ancient, powerful, and intelligent in ways humans could barely comprehend. Lyra reached out, and the relic floated from Rylan's hands into hers. For a moment, Rylan felt panic. How could an object that had weighed so much simply lift into the air? But he noticed that Lyra's glow had intensified. She was not using strength but some connection to the energy around them. The relic responded willingly to her touch. Then, without warning, a loud crack echoed through the canyon. The ground shook violently and the water in the pool sloshed dangerously. Rylan stumbled backward, holding onto a vine for support. The walls of the canyon seemed to bend, branches twisting to block the way. "Something's coming," he said. He could feel it in the air, a presence, intelligent and watchful, moving closer. It wasn't hostile yet, but it was curious, and Rylan had learned that curiosity from an unknown predator was often the most dangerous kind. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, sending warmth through his body. It was calming, grounding. He took a deep breath and followed her as she moved toward a hidden passage in the canyon wall. The opening was narrow and partially hidden behind a curtain of glowing vines. Inside, the air was cooler and quieter. Rylan could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The passage led downward into the earth, and the glow from Lyra and the relic illuminated the way. As they moved, he realized that the walls of the tunnel were carved with more markings, symbols of beings that had lived here long before humans arrived. "An ancient civilization," Rylan whispered. "This place, it's full of history." Lyra nodded slightly and led him deeper. The tunnel opened into a cavern, vast and filled with floating crystals that pulsed with light. The air shimmered with energy, and Rylan felt a sense of awe and fear at the same time. The relic pulsed in his hand again, as if it recognized the place. At the center of the cavern was a platform, carved from the natural stone, and on it rested a larger device, more complex and intricate than the relic Rylan carried. He stepped closer, careful not to touch anything without understanding it. The markings on the platform matched the symbols on the relic, suggesting they were part of the same system. Lyra gestured for him to place the relic onto the platform. Hesitating only for a moment, Rylan followed her guidance. As soon as the relic touched the surface, the platform lit up. Lines of glowing energy spread outward, connecting the crystals in the cavern. A low hum filled the air, vibrating in his chest. The relic and the platform were awakening something. Rylan felt a rush of energy, like a current flowing through his body. He stumbled, but Lyra caught him. The glow around her intensified, and the crystals in the cavern reflected their light, creating a kaleidoscope of colors. Then the cavern walls shifted, revealing a hidden chamber beyond. Rylan could see faint outlines of machinery, some of it clearly ancient, some of it almost organic in appearance. He realized that this was a repository of knowledge, a library of alien technology waiting to be understood. But the sense of awe was cut short. From the shadows of the cavern, movement emerged. Rylan held the relic close, ready to defend himself. Creatures unlike any he had seen before appeared, their eyes reflecting the light of the crystals. They were cautious, watching him but clearly intelligent. Lyra stepped forward between Rylan and the creatures, her glow spreading wide. The beings paused, as if acknowledging her authority. Rylan realized then that Lyra's species had a connection to this place. They were its guardians, protectors of the relic and the knowledge within. With Lyra leading, Rylan slowly stepped forward. He needed to understand these beings to communicate that he came with peaceful intentions. He extended his hands, showing he was unarmed, and spoke softly. "I mean no harm. I am here to learn, to help humanity." The creatures studied him for a long moment. Then, as if deciding he was worthy, they stepped aside, allowing him to approach the hidden chamber. Rylan's heart raced with excitement. Humanity's first contact with intelligent alien life, and it was not violent. It was cautious, thoughtful, and alive with curiosity. Lyra guided him through the chamber, showing him panels of symbols, holographic displays, and objects that seemed to defy physics. Rylan tried to take notes in his mind, storing everything he saw. This knowledge, if shared with the colony, could revolutionize human understanding of technology, energy, and even life itself. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Rylan was exhausted but exhilarated. He felt a bond growing between himself and Lyra, a connection built on trust, understanding, and shared purpose. The relic pulsed faintly in his hands, reminding him that this was only the beginning. Finally, Lyra led him to a smaller chamber at the far end of the cavern. Here, the energy was concentrated, and Rylan could feel it humming through the air. He understood instinctively that this place was a core, a central power source that could stabilize the relic and perhaps the entire forest. Rylan knelt and placed the relic carefully in the center. The glow spread, merging with the energy of the chamber. He felt a surge of hope. Humanity could survive on Aurora 7 and perhaps thrive if they learned to work with the planet rather than against it. As he looked up, he saw Lyra standing at the entrance, watching him silently. He realized that this adventure was far from over. The forest still held secrets, and the relic was only one piece of a much larger puzzle. But for the first time, Rylan felt certain that humans could rise to meet the challenge. The cavern hummed softly around them, a promise of discovery, protection, and cooperation. And as Rylan and Lyra prepared to leave, he knew that together they could face whatever dangers Aurora 7 had in store. The forest outside awaited, alive and unpredictable, but Rylan felt ready. With courage, intelligence, and an unexpected ally, humanity's place among the stars was growing clearer and brighter. The forest outside the cavern seemed quieter than usual. The mist hung low over the glowing moss, and the air vibrated with energy. Rylan adjusted the relic in his hands, feeling its faint pulse. It was calm now, stabilized by the chamber's energy, but he knew that wouldn't last forever. The forest itself seemed aware of what had happened in the cavern, and he could sense that more challenges were coming. Lyra hovered silently beside him, her glow steady and bright. She had guided him through the labyrinth of tunnels, protected him from dangers, and introduced him to the alien guardians. Now, as they prepared to leave, he felt a sense of determination he had never experienced before. Humanity had a chance to thrive here, and he would not let it slip away. They stepped out of the cavern into the forest. The glowing plants seemed to pulse faster, as if responding to the relic in Ryland's possession. But there was a shift in the atmosphere, something moving in the shadows, larger and faster than any creature he had seen so far. Before he could react, the ground trembled violently. A massive, shadowy figure emerged from the mist. Its body was covered in dark, bark-like armor, and its limbs ended in clawed appendages that scraped against the glowing moss. Its eyes shone with a deep, amber light, and it let out a low, rumbling growl that made the air vibrate. Ryland's heart pounded. This was unlike any wildlife they had encountered. The creature was clearly intelligent, and its size alone made it a formidable threat. He instinctively stepped in front of Lyra, raising the relic, but he had no idea how it could protect them. Lyra's glow flared brightly. She moved between Ryland and the creature, her hands outstretched. The forest seemed to respond to her presence. Vines lifted from the ground, twisting into barriers that blocked the creature's path. The air itself hummed with energy, and the creature hesitated, watching her. Ryland realized then that this was a test. The forest had guardians, and the relic had awakened its power. He had to act quickly and smartly. He took a deep breath. "We can't fight it with brute force," he said aloud, though he wasn't sure she could understand. "We need to use the energy, the forest itself." Lyra tilted her head, then gestured for him to follow. She led him toward a narrow canyon that twisted between massive trees. The creature moved after them, its steps shaking the ground. Ryland noticed that the relic pulsed faster as the creature approached, as if warning him. They reached the canyon's center, where glowing crystals jutted out from the ground. Lyra hovered above the largest crystal, her glow merging with its light. Ryland understood what she wanted him to do. He placed the relic onto the crystal's base, and immediately energy surged through the air. Vines and roots erupted from the ground, forming walls and barriers that trapped the creature at the edge of the canyon. Its growls echoed as it tried to break free, but the energy of the forest, combined with the relic and Lyra's control, held it in place. Ryland felt a surge of triumph. "It's working," he shouted, feeling the power of human ingenuity combined with alien energy. Humanity might not be strong physically compared to the alien guardians or creatures of Aurora 7, but their intelligence, courage, and willingness to adapt gave them an advantage no brute force could match. The creature let out one final roar before retreating into the mist. Ryland watched it vanish, feeling a mix of relief and awe. Lyra's glow dimmed slightly, as if she were conserving energy. She looked at him, and for the first time Ryland felt a deep connection, not just with her but with the planet itself. The forest was alive, and humanity had found a place within it. For the next few hours, Ryland and Lyra moved deeper into the forest, mapping a safe path and studying the energy around the relic. They discovered hidden streams, glowing plants with healing properties, and small creatures that seemed curious rather than dangerous. Every step revealed more of Aurora 7's mysteries, and Ryland realized that the planet itself was a teacher, guiding those who approached with respect and intelligence. As night fell, the forest glowed like a sea of stars. Ryland and Lyra rested beside a small waterfall, its water shimmering with bioluminescent minerals. Ryland examined the relic more closely. It was more than a tool. It was a key, a bridge between human ingenuity and alien knowledge. If the colony could harness it safely, humanity could thrive on Aurora 7. Lyra hovered nearby, her glow reflecting in the water. She moved closer, lightly touching Ryland's shoulder. The warmth of her touch filled him with courage and calm. He realized that trust and cooperation were just as powerful as any technology. Humans could survive here not by conquering, but by learning, adapting, and respecting the forces around them. Suddenly, the forest shimmered in the distance. A faint ripple ran through the glowing plants, and Ryland felt the energy pulse faster. Something or someone was coming. He held up the relic. "We need to be ready," he said, more to himself than to Lyra. A moment later, a group of explorers from the colony emerged from the mist. They had followed Ryland's original mapping route, unaware that he had already discovered the relic. Their eyes widened when they saw the glowing crystals, the energy currents, and Lyra. "Captain Ryland," one of them shouted. "We thought we lost you." Ryland stepped forward, holding the relic. "We're not lost," he said calmly. "We've found something incredible, but we need to be careful. The forest, it's alive, and it chooses who it trusts." The explorers looked at Lyra in awe. Some stepped back wary, but Ryland raised his hand. "She's our guide. She's helping us. If we work together, we can survive and thrive here." The explorers nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in his words. Humans had always faced challenges, and they had survived not through strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and teamwork. Lyra gestured for them to follow her deeper into the forest. Ryland led the way, guiding the humans to safety while keeping the relic stable. The forest responded to their combined presence, creating paths, barriers, and safe zones as they moved. It was as if Aurora 7 itself were testing them, and humans were passing. Hours later, they reached a plateau overlooking the colony. Lights from the human settlement twinkled in the distance, but Ryland's eyes were fixed on the forest around them. He had seen its dangers and its wonders, and he understood that humanity's journey on Aurora 7 was only beginning. Lyra hovered beside him, her glow faint but steady. Ryland reached out, and for a moment their hands touched. The relic pulsed one last time, sending a wave of energy through the forest. It was a silent promise. Humanity and this world could grow together, stronger than either could alone. Ryland turned to the explorers. "We have work to do," he said. "This forest is full of secrets, but now we know we can face them. We can learn, we can adapt, and we will thrive." The explorers nodded, inspired by his words. They had seen fear, mystery, and danger, but they had also witnessed courage, intelligence, and the bonds that connected humans and alien life. That night, around the settlement's fire pits, Ryland recounted the journey. The explorers listened in awe as he described Lyra, the relic, and the hidden cavern of knowledge. They understood that this was not just a mission, it was a beginning. Humanity had found a place among the stars, a place where their ingenuity and courage could shine brighter than any danger. Lyra watched from the edge of the forest, her glowing eyes reflecting the firelight. She had guided humans through peril, shown them the secrets of her world, and taught them the importance of respect, patience, and understanding. And now, as she melted back into the mist, Ryland knew they were no longer alone. Humanity had an ally, a friend, and a guide in this strange and beautiful world. As the night deepened, Ryland looked up at the glowing sky of Aurora 7. Stars shone like diamonds, but so did the forest below. He smiled. The universe was vast, full of mysteries and dangers, but humans had the tools, the mind, and the courage to rise to every challenge. And this was just the beginning. Somewhere deep in the forest, the relic pulsed once more, a quiet heartbeat of hope and possibility. Ryland felt it in his chest. Humanity had arrived on Aurora 7. Humanity had survived, and humanity would shine. The adventure was far from over, but one thing was certain. Wherever humans went, wherever challenges arose, they would meet them with intelligence, courage, and an unbreakable will. The stars awaited, and so did countless worlds, but Ryland knew that humanity was ready. The forest whispered around him, alive, glowing, and full of secrets. And humans, guided by curiosity and courage, were finally ready to listen.